Mentoria.
So, hi, Niket, architect working in Bombay since past 15 years. Got architecture through heredity. My father is also an architect, chief architect MSCB for about 25 years. And we have a practice which is spanning about 40 years now, the entire office experience person. I predominantly have studied in Bombay. I studied Architecture College, Kamla Raja College of Architecture in Juhu. And after that, I've been working in heavy industrial architecture, factories, warehouses, and then moving on towards commercial interiors, residential interiors, and now pursuing what I like is designing and talking about designing about the city and about architecture which will matter to people. So that's me.
I'm a conservation architect and I did my master's after pursuing architecture for 2 years way back in 2004, and apart from practice I've been teaching in architecture schools. So my journey is right from learning to searching who I am to actually making people realize what architecture is about, or teaching. So that's what I do, apart from restoring old heritage sites or designing new inserts in heritage areas to actually teaching architecture students. I think with an architect each day is new, and which is what, of course it has its own pluses and minuses, but normally for an architect it's very clear that if he set out to do something, it may never happen in the same particular sequence or in the same particular manner as planned. So planning a day for an architect is really not possible, I wouldn't say, but doesn't really work. So the more and more it is a spontaneous or a much more intuitive way, or ways in which you can at least think, okay, you have to in a day at least keep some time to think, or maybe not do anything, as compared to, so either to recap or to be able to apply your thoughts into some kind of reality, whether it's to make a drawing itself, So your brain has to be constantly charged up, and then only something creative comes out, and you are then able to even apply, or thought can come at any time. So you're constantly waiting for that moment in a day.
Inspiration can hit you anytime.
Anytime, and that's why it becomes very important for us to carry a book or a pencil, or be able to make these notes, which if we don't make those mental notes, the day seems incomplete. You almost feel like you did nothing during the day. Sometimes it's just about being able to make a connection, and it kind of makes your day. So it's almost like that. When it comes to especially teaching, it really works like that. But I'm sure you have a different.
Yeah, whenever somebody says what's like your day like, so I was thinking day, or I was thinking night, because most of the things is day and night. So once you become an architect, you have to understand that actually the ideas come when the world, at times things are silent around you, and you really would see yourself staying up late in the night, and it has its own thrill, it has its own fun, and it has and you feel different, and you have to set a goal that today practicing a person who has an established practice, who has a certain sites which are running, and they have a certain, every site has a target date of completion. So in one day we have to wear different hats. So maybe in the morning we are wearing a hat maybe of a person who is trying to manage things or planning things. Maybe the second part of the day it's all about like being the monitor of the site, or being the person who is commanding a site, or really being in front of the line and taking trying to resolve things. We also have to be very good listeners, and at the same time we have to be able to be good orators. Orators, when I say, because the idea, if you don't communicate it properly, it's going to be a disaster. And this will come through learning. So you'll have lots of failed projects, you'll have lots of angry clients in the beginning. But remember that you have to take these experiences as learnings, and not to get dejected and not to get bogged down. But the more and more you start speaking to people, the more and more adverse situations you learn to handle, I think you not only become a better architect, but you become a better person. And that's very important.
Especially when you see a lot of girl students now during architecture. So even when I studied, there was almost like a 2:1 ratio. So you had more girls were there, but now it's become even much larger kind of a population, because that perception that architecture can be practiced sitting at home is something which is
but in a negative way. It's now happened, like people think it also in a negative way, because you don't have to work too much, you can sit at home and earn.
But that's not like how it is, because you have to constantly be aware of new things, and you have to be able to visit the market, or even if ongoing sites are going on, you are expected to visit sites where probably you don't have normal facilities also, because an under construction site doesn't really have ready-made service zones, or even like a kind of
as well as a washroom.
You don't even have a washroom, you don't have places to even sit. So you have to really literally be on toes. So many of the times you tend to think that architecture is a field where you can probably do things from home, but that's not really true. But at the same time, it's that exposure which, like you mentioned, that really helps in understanding of that knowledge that you gain by even talking to forget the owners and the industrialists or the owners of houses, to the actual people who are doing the work, the contractors or the carpenters, the plumbers. You develop a very kind of different way of understanding the language. In terms of, like I said, pursuing architecture education, it's really what we tend to want in students is the fact that they should be able to imagine things, you know. So the whole first year of the curriculum is first 2 years, which we call normally as foundation years of architecture, are aimed at breaking from the conventional ideas of building, that a roof can, you know, or the way you denote a house like this is not the only way that a space is created. In fact, we even start sometimes, the course starts with designing a chair, for example, which kind of again doesn't require the student to be able to already imagine or be able to draw as much as the sense how high should a chair be, that idea of scale, or the idea of just taking the initiative to go and measure things. So sometimes in students we just want that sense of initiative and curiosity. Really, it's about curiosity, wanting to learn, like I said, you know, is one of the key aspects that you require. And probably this liking to travel, liking to see new things always helps, because we normally want to teach them to see rather than, you know, or different ways of seeing rather than just look at things, or different ways of listening rather than just hearing things. So it normally needs a lot of activation of your 5 senses that you kind of are as a human being.
But the curriculum requires you to be like a science
but
science
there is an option now where even arts and commerce graduates after their 12 are allowed to kind of sign up for an architectural course, but we've not had a very huge success in it, because like I said that physics or science is a very important aspect of architecture, so it tends to kind of cause a little issues. But if the person is willing to learn, if their observation skills, communication skills are some things which they feel that they have a good quality like that, then they should definitely try it.
Once I think you become a graduate from architecture, I think there are 2 kind of architects you'll see on the road. One is a happy and a excited and a very curious kind of one, and the one is like a dejected and negative and looking for a place to just hide and maybe sulk. So you have to, now this is the time where you have to choose who you want to be. And we feel and we are sure that your approach and your attitude is going to connect you to that kind of people. So 1,000 architects in Bombay are going to be graduating on the day you graduate. So we feel that there's lots and lots of opportunity and job if you have the right attitude. The important fact is that you have to approach your mentor with that due respect. And I think people who are out of jobs or people who complain that there's no jobs for architects are the people who are not ready, who have to yet correct that attitude, I think. And those are the people who are still jobless or still searching or still sulking maybe. But people who have the correct attitude and have found out the right way of approaching a senior architect to work with, or any person who inspires them to work with, I think they are all they found themselves.
So when basically once you finish your 5 years program, like I said earlier, that actually your journey as an architect begins after that. Because in the 5 years you've just opened up, you've searched that architect hidden inside you, you have acquired the skills which are required to practice, but you still don't have that experience or the knowledge that needs for any particular project to be executed at the site.
So never say that, oh, I'm very good at drawing and I'm very good at sketching and I can make beautiful portraits and landscape. No. In fact, if somebody asks you what you really know and you say, I've learned this, but I want to get better. I think that attitude will just help you, get more knowledge from your senior that way. Somebody always said that architecture is actually a very historic profession in that way. Earlier we had kings used to it's a royal historic profession, and architects for kings were given this immense thing of not only creating an image for that little empire or the kingdom, and they also had to be tactical, they also had to be aesthetic, they also had to function the needs. I think all that thing now we have forgotten. I think it's time to just get back to that wayfinding of what actually an architect should do. And in fact, these exactly is what the first 2 years or first year at least is expected of an intern. It's not to suddenly go and do projects. It's not it's not safe also for the city to interns doing projects. But at the same time, it is it's very important that soul searching is what that first year would do. Maybe you won't get answers of what you want to do, but at least you know what you don't want to do. And that's something which is very important in your journey when you set your foot into the market to become an architect. So in fact, whenever people are saying that what am I deriving from the internship is exactly the things either what you want to do or things which you definitely know what you don't want to do.
But when I started, internship, I still remember that one sketch that I made that kind of translated into a project, and it actually became a building, which I sometimes remember that one sketch that I did even while I was an intern, but rest of the time went in literally organizing sometimes books or organizing drawings in a way. So it was really a process of learning that what really an architect does in reality, and that is what is very crucial in the first few months. So normally when people come to intern with us, we do give them initial projects or small kind of design problems which they can tackle, whether it is just getting something done, execution, to actually check out whether they can really sketch, because of the way technology has moved in architecture. We have moved away from those boards where we would draft to actually computer modeling. And when we come out of college, we are kind of still in that mode of not being able to really present something in the context. And it always helps to sketch those ideas first, and which is the other thing which we as our firm kind of intend to inculcate in the students who come as fresh, or architects who freshly have graduated, to learn to draw and to be able to communicate to us, even if it is a very simple job being given or assigned to them. How do they? The whole thing is in terms of how would they execute is what becomes really important. Like how would they apply what they learned?
So personally, like I consider myself as an intern. Actually, before being an architect, I used to go with my father to his sites, and they would do these huge transmission towers. And he was a MSCB chief architect for, as I said. So one thing I found very strange in this site and very interesting. Everybody spoke different languages. So my father spoke to the supervisor in English. The supervisor spoke to his main contractor in Hindi. The main contractor spoke to his laborers in South Indian language, and still they would figure it out. And this is so strange. It's just like magic. And they said something, and the words are different. People are different. They are maybe not even qualified, but these are the people who are, doing serious stuff and things which are so important and so structurally challenging. And then I realized at times. Language is so important of an architect, and when I say language, it's not words, it might be just a sketch, it might be how you say it or how you express it or how you can make it clear for the person whom you are telling what has to be done. I think that itself, that language which is doesn't have any regional connotation that way, it can be anything and it can be as abstract as possible and people still understand it. And I think I think that intern journey should begin with trying to figuring out that language of architecture.
From the time that you kind of make up your mind that you want to become an architect, I'm saying make up your mind literally, because it doesn't happen maybe when you join architecture as a course or when you're in your third year, when you've started to understand scale or design, or when you're interning with somebody. It really happens when something strikes you. So for example, my journey, like I said, I didn't have an architecture background, like I didn't have anybody in the family as an architect, and when that field was exposed to me, I realized that this is something that I want to become. And then once I finished my architecture, literally in a span of a month, I heard about this program called conservation or something to do with historic architecture. And the fact that I just took it on literally as a challenge. It suddenly excited me, the thought that if you already have something, like a building is already there, how much more challenging it would be to do something in a building like that. When you are not able to really create it from scratch, and when you are given a kind of a challenge, can now deal with it. There is already a building, which is what kind of hinted to me that maybe this is the specialization I want to do. But like I said, architecture as a profession, it's very tough to decide on what kind of specialization you want to do. And frankly speaking, after having done the program, what it really did to me was opened up my mind even more. Because I didn't go into that field thinking that I want to become an expert in heritage conservation. I took it as a step of learning it as a new challenge given to me. And that is where it kind of differed, and I still stick to the fact that I'm an architect first, and heritage of course is a kind of a specialization that I have, and I have a skill base in that, I have a knowledge base in that, I have an interest in that, but it doesn't kind of limit my way of thinking. Otherwise, specialization in architecture can be a very difficult choice to make, because then you would feel limited. That clarity of what you want to do your specialization in should not be dependent on a subject. It should be dependent on the way you want to think about architecture when you're practicing.
But I think it's the same way now, students nowadays are very much they're very informed and they're very aware. And just like maybe some of you must have opted to see this webinar, means you already maybe want to know what is about and what is about this profession. So it already says about this generation. I think they want information. They are very aware. So like how in school you like a subject. So there's history, geography, like civics or whatever. And mathematics or whatever. So I think you start liking a subject in a similar way. You have subjects when you're learning architecture. You'll start liking certain subjects, and then you more read about that subject, and then you think, oh, now there's specialization. about furniture, there's specialization about lighting, there's specialization about mechanics, elevators and escalators and everything like that. And so I think everything has a specialization, and now more and more the world is actually becoming more flatter by that, and everything is accessible, all knowledge is accessible, every school is approachable. So I think when you are studying architecture, you keep your eyes and your heart open, as I always say, and you see what draws you, and then you can further investigate into that particular field and pursue that.
See, there is a conflict when you look at it as old school and new school. Okay, but actually when you look at it as a growth pattern of the profession, it has really opened up very many again new avenues or ways of being able to create. Of course, it has to start with that one idea or a thought or maybe a sketch or something, but today technology allows you to use parametrics or just mathematical formula again, which mathematicians at a historical age were doing to create, say for example, Eiffel Tower
Pyramids.
or pyramids, and today it has again become possible with technology to do that. And we have seen that many people are good with expressing their thoughts through hand sketches or even three-dimensional drawings, because that's a skill that they acquire very early during their course nowadays. And therefore, they understand the value. What is important is, as a teaching as an educator, to be able to explain to the student the importance of being able to sketch, or the importance of being able to express an idea through a very simple medium, and then taking it to that level where through computers you can actually generate buildings and structures, which is happening throughout the world. Of course, in India you do have probably few products which have been designed, not really structures, because our space constraint is so much, or our needs or aspirations are very different.
My father had a very different answer when somebody came to his office and said that, अरे आप तो ओल्ड आर्किटेक्ट है, आपका क्या, आपका बेटा तो कंप्यूटर पे करता है, और आजकल इतना कंप्यूटर्स आ गया है, सॉफ्टवेयर्स आ गया है, अभी तो कुछ करना नहीं पड़ता है और बटन सिर्फ दबाने का और बिल्डिंग बन जाता है. So my father had a very interesting answer to that. He said, अरे क्या ऑटो पायलट आ गया तो पायलट इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है क्या? That way. So I think still we need some kind of a guide. I think that thought, that responsibility, or the brain is still required. And then these gadgets will just make it more easier and scalable, and in fact what we used to call it the gada majuri, or the donkey's work, actually gets reduced by these gadgets and new software. So I think it has to be a mix of both. It has to be the idea and something which can translate the idea. I think both are important. As you study architecture, you'll pick up books and you'll see so many of legendary architects have actually made chairs. And when I was a student, I would wonder what these architects are making chairs for, to make buildings and whatever. But then you realize that actually if you just start making a chair for somebody, like you start making a chair for your grandfather, and you'll realize all the challenges like a building or a city will have the same challenges what you'll have to have answers for while designing that chair for your grandfather maybe. And your fees or your ultimate satisfaction would be somebody actually sitting on that chair and saying, oh, it's a nice job. And I feel that should be our thing of really the scale doesn't matter, it's the process, it's the inquiry, it's the product, it's the design, it's the approach, and finally your humbleness towards the requirement. I think that just sums it up to be a good architect.